I have extensive experience working in war zone. I think the last 2 decades I cover all the wars and conflict. I've been wounded several times. I lost a bit of my hand, as you can
Oh
see.
wow. Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, also in Libya, it was a bad day. And of course, you have to learn. It takes a certain type of skill to operate in those very challenging and difficult environment.
Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. Today I'm talking to Olivier Sarbil of Viktor, which is premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 8th, 2024. It is a film that has a striking black and white style, so I'm going to see if I can make this interview black and white. All right, I'm going to talk to Olivier right now, and while you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. That's a lot. Thank you. So, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got Olivier Sarbil of Viktor, which is premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 8th, 2024. It is a striking black and white documentary about this person named Viktor who is trying to help Ukraine, trying to defend his country, wants to serve, but is also deaf, and the ways that he is going about trying to fulfill his desire to serve his country with, overcoming his, potential disability. It is a fascinating story. It is a really kind of like striking documentary. So I'm very excited to talk to you. And thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Of course. And I have my samurai sword here. So I
Oh, interesting. You have a katana.
well, it's from Kenshin, so the blade's on the backside, but yeah, close enough.
All right.
So no, I loved this documentary. I thought it was amazing. Like it's just such an interesting story, such a fascinating tale. So how did you find the story? Like, did you know Viktor before? Were you working on something in the buildup, or how did you kind of get this going?
No, when so I've been wounded about 10 years, more than 10 years ago during the war in Libya, and I've lost part of my hearing from the right side. So
Oh
I'm
wow.
from the right side. And it really reshaped the way I understand the world and, of course, my perception of the sound. So this is this really perspective that driven me to explore the story of a deaf man with the backdrop of a war. I didn't know Victor, so when I went to Ukraine to meet the deaf community, I simply find Victor on Facebook.
That's
I
awesome.
found Victor, yeah.
And so, like, were you making a documentary as it seemed like tensions were building up in Russia, or were you in Ukraine for a separate purpose, and then the world just kind of exploded that while you were there?
So we knew the war was, everyone knew the war was probably going to happen. And with Protozoa, Darren, we wanted to collaborate on one project before a long time, and I approached them about Ukraine. I didn't have a story at the time, and I went there, and this is when I thought about the deaf community.
Wow, yeah, that's. And so, did you focus only on Victor, or were you kind of filming other members of the deaf community as well, and Victor just kind of like stood out as someone that could, headline his own documentary?
Yeah, so the first couple of weeks, I tried to meet different people, from the deaf community. And when I met Victor, it was like, as a filmmaker, in documentary, you meet sometime a character and you say, that's it, that's the one. And my instinct told me that we have to stay on Victor. He has so much charisma, and I think he can support a film on his shoulder. So yes, and then I focus exclusively on Victor. But I've met several people from the deaf community, and during the work process, I was in touch and collaborating with the deaf community.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Victor was just fascinating. I mean, he looks like Ukrainian Jason Momoa. He looks like your ideal super soldier. And it was surprising that, they weren't able to find a role for him other than like as a photographer. It seems almost like a waste of his talent, his desire when I'm sure he could have done something more on the front lines.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously he wants to join us. His father raised him really with war stories. and is fascinated by the samurai mythology. And when he started, he wanted to join the military before the war. He was rejected before the war. But, unfortunately, war and fighting is about communication, as we know. And so it was very hard to find a role, a fighting role for him. It's impossible. But I'm glad that he found a purpose and pick up a camera, and he was able to go on the front line and to document it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And speaking of the like frontline responsibilities he had, like there were some fairly dangerous looking scenes in the documentary. I mean, how close were you to combat when you were filming? Are there any good, war stories that happened while you were filming this?
Yeah, well, I have extensive experience working in war zone. I think the last 2 decades I cover all the wars and conflict. I've been wounded several times. I lost a bit of my hand, as you can
Oh
see.
wow. Oh wow.
So,
Yeah.
also in Libya, it was a bad day. And of course, you have to learn, it takes a certain type of skill to operate in those very challenging and difficult environment. You have the war area, and then you have the front line, and then you have the battlefield, and you're getting closer, the risks are getting greater. Viktor was actually remarkable, and the way he operates, he was so calm, and I was really impressed by his all. He was, yeah, he was remarkable. Of course, he was, have to watch out for him. It was very important. But he really want to be there. He really, really want to be there. And you know, as someone that is very experienced working in war zone, sometimes I have young filmmaker, aspiring filmmaker that won't operate in war zone, and I never tell them not to go, because they will go anyway. The only thing I can do is share my experience and try to prepare them when I help them as much as I can is what I do, what I did with Viktor, really.
Yeah, no, he definitely seemed like a natural. Like you said, he seemed very calm out there. And also, when he was demonstrating some of his firearm skills, like he just seemed to like naturally get it. Whether it was from watching movies or his own research, he just seemed to like be at
I
home
know.
there.
I know it was fascinating because and I used to be a soldier myself back in early 90s, and I was surprised. Victor, you know how to handle weapons, and even the soldiers that he was documenting were highly surprised. They didn't even believe it that it was the first time he was holding a weapon. But yes, he's watching so many wars movie. He's reading so much. He's going on YouTube and learn about weapons, and yeah, he's a natural.
Yeah, those are fun scenes. And I also really loved the way that the film kind of ended with him talking to a soldier who had lost some of his hearing and kind of like sharing that experience, letting him like help that soldier along too, because it really shows the breadth of what Victor can do and kind of like the passion he has towards the war effort and towards it, his other Ukrainian friends. So
Yeah, it was a strong emotional moment for all of us. It's actually the deaf community that told us that a soldier lost his hearing in a battlefield, and Victor really wanted to meet him. And I didn't know really what he was going to say, and he was very organic when he talked to him. I don't speak the language, so I had no idea what he was. The deaf.
um yeah.
Uh, and yeah, it was a beautiful, strong moment for everyone.
Yeah, that was awesome. And so one thing that really kind of hits you from the front, like from the start of this movie, is the black and white style. Was it always going to be in black and white? Was that, a tribute to like Victor's love of samurai movies? Was it a way for the viewers to experience a little bit of sensory loss as well as somewhat a little bit of both? Like what was the reasoning
Of
behind it?
everything. I start to shoot the film in color, actually, the choice, the visual grammar, the visual language of the film came when I was on the ground, very organically, naturally, as I was getting to know Victor better, as really our relationship start to deepen. This is when I start to shift to black and white. Victor like the black and white. He likes to take pictures in black and white. He believes that somehow the black and white uh, raise some sort of how we'll say brings out a greater sense of fairness and balance in the world, and that's really what reflect the way using the black and white really reflect the way Viktor see and experience the his life. And that's one of the reasons why I switched to black and white. But there is something else. The deaf community rely a lot on reading facial expression. And when you actually shift to black and white, the pictures, the image actually gain some sort of transcendental quality that actually drive the regard, how do you say, the grace, the gaze to facial line, light, and shape, and facial expression that you can miss actually in color. So it was also very interesting so I was, yeah, that's the two main reasons I switched to the black and white, but it's not something that I was thought beforehand. I'm going to Ukraine and make a black and white film.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I like that. I like that the explanation. I love the look. I thought it was like just instantly kind of grabbed your attention from the start. So I think that was a smart decision, even for, someone who is able to hear. I thought it was a fantastic look. You mentioned
And
experiencing the way that Viktor kind of like likes to experience the world. One thing that I also loved is the use of sound, and especially like the muffled sounds that happened occasionally when you were in Viktor's perspective. Like what was it like? I assume that you had all the sounds, you just kind of like picked when you wanted to have the audience experience that as well, right?
yeah, the sonic impression of the film was obviously one of the crucial elements of the film. And we work with an amazing team of sound designer, Peter Albrechtston, Nicola Baker. Those guys have been working on Sound of Metal.
Mhm.
So they have extensive experience collaborating and working with the deaf community. And the idea was really to create, in a very organic way, a sound that help really the audience to dive into the inner life, inner world of Viktor, and also to understand how we experience the sound from inside, from his own body.
Yeah, no, I think that was, especially during some of like the military scenes where things are happening, gunfire is happening, cans are happening, and it's all muffled. That really kind of like lets you see also how he was able to stay calm, but also how that might affect a soldier, and like not having that kind of sensory input might affect their ability to do things on the battlefield. So I thought that was really kind of a crucial part of this movie.
Yeah.
And so the documentary ends. I'm just curious, what is Viktor doing now? I assume he is still helping in whatever way he can, but have you been in contact with Viktor since filming this movie?
I'm in contact with Viktor almost every day. We've built a very strong connection, and Viktor and myself and the team have been a very collaborative process. So, we work together during the film, but I kept in touch during the whole editing process. I want to empower Viktor to, have a strong impact and make sure that his story was told in the best way as possible. And is doing well, but like everyone else, as the war is there and is trying to survive, but he's in good spirit, and yeah, it's the life is still very hard for him, and very hard for him to find job also as a photographer.
Yeah, that's well, I'm glad to hear he's in good spirits. It seems like, he constantly has like a positive mentality, so that's good to hear. But yeah, I'm also glad to hear that he's safe despite everything that's happened over the last year. So I know we have limited time. I'm going to switch to what I call the lightning round. They're just lightweight questions about the film. I want to see how your personal experiences map to things in the movie. Feel free to
Yeah.
skip any of them. I won't be offended, but I try to keep them very answerable. First one, I know the answer. The question was, have you ever served? You clearly have. So you have served in the military before.
Yeah, I've served in the military. I served in an airborne regiment in France.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I was going to
Normandie.
also ask if you fired a gun, but clearly if you've been in the military, you've fired a gun. So have you ever used a sword?
A sword, like a katana, like Viktor samurai.
Katana or a rapier, whatever, some sort
No,
of stabbing implement.
no, I never. No.
Are you a fan of like old black and white Kurosawa kind of like samurai films?
I mean, as a filmmaker, you have to be a fan of The Seven Samurai. This movie, it's all about cinema, So it's one of the most inspiring filmmaker, So yes, I love his movies, yeah.
Fantastic. I assume you know sign language, but when did you learn? Did you know it before you lost your hearing, or was that something that you acquired
I mean,
after? Maybe you
sign
haven't
language?
learned. What?
What did you say again?
Sign language.
So sign language, when you have single side deafness, you don't learn sign language really. So when I met Viktor, learned a few basic, I will say, sign language just to have like very, casual little chat, and I still trying to improve my sign language skills. But I've started to practice when I met Viktor. So
Oh,
when he
wow.
was when, you know.
That's awesome. That must also help some interactions with the deaf community as well, just like having that ability.
But of course, I'm not fluent, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm fluent in sign language.
Yeah.
So
Well,
with Victor, when we communicate together, I'm using Google Translate. It works very well. When we have internet, Victor is also so brilliant at reading lips. You can see in a film, is reading lips. And my Ukrainian field producer was also helping for translation, and I use also visual aid, body language, and actually uh, really enjoy when you don't speak the language and you force the communication with your contributor, because I think in many ways it helps to build a deeper connection with the contributor. So yeah.
That's an amazing like amount of amazing ways to communicate with him. That's awesome. I love hearing that. And yeah, I agree. Like if you don't fully speak the language, you at least need to communicate somehow, and that does cause like a more emotional connection, more kind of like focused
Exactly.
conversation.
Exactly.
And the last question is, what is your favorite black and white movie?
It's very hard. I don't have a favorite black and white movie. I think it depends more from my mood and the time. Maybe it would be a time that I love the samurai. Maybe, recently I watched Replay. I love the black and white. It was so beautifully shot. I don't know if you saw it.
I don't
On
think
Netflix.
which movie?
Replay. Replay is my
No,
French.
I don't think I saw it.
It's so beautifully shot. I love Cold War. Also, it's beautiful movie in black and white. A lot of movies from the 60s. Uh, but again, it's really depend. I don't have one movie that comes on the top of the other.
That
I
makes
love
perfect sense. Depends on the mood, right? Depends on which movie you're in the mood for.
yeah.
So the film is premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival on December 8th, 2024. You are out getting the word out, letting people know about Victor's story and this film. But I imagine after this film premieres, after it runs the festival circuit, do you have any other projects that you're working on the horizon that you can talk about?
Not that I can really talk about because they're still in my head, unfortunately. So anything that is only in my head right now is not a project yet. But yes, I'm hoping to be back behind the camera as soon as possible.
Very cool. Well, we will wait anxiously. But while you wait for those future projects, check out Victor at the Toronto International Film Festival, premiering on September 8th, 2024. This is Olivier Sarbil, the director. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
That was Olivier Sarbil of Victor, which is premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 8th, 2024. It is a fascinating documentary about a deaf Ukrainian man who has a desire to serve his country, desire to protect his home, and the lengths that he will go to fulfill that dream despite not being able to hear. It has a really amazing style, some really beautiful music, and a really good use of sound. So definitely check it out if you're at Toronto, and if not, keep an eye out for it. I'm sure it'll run the festival circuit before eventually coming to some sort of digital or streaming platform. If you like this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.